And I pray in that name and invoke that name, and we come before the throne of God in that name to seek forgiveness and to seek clemency for Kofi Modibo Ajabu. And so we ask now that you invoke your spirit in these proceedings, and that those of us who will speak with, and hopefully that we'll be able to speak with the governor, that you would touch his heart as you have, and he's declared his faith, that he would be open to your Holy Spirit's leading and guiding to have an official clemency granted for Kofi Modibo Ajabu.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Binta Ajabu, and I am Kofi's youngest sister, and I just want to first thank you all for being here in support of Kofi and of our family. Your presence here speaks volumes about your commitment to justice and fairness and also second chances. Today we gather not just as individuals, but as a unified community advocating for clemency for Kofi. Kofi's story is one of redemption and of hope, and we are here to amplify his voice and call for justice and remind Governor Holcomb for our power of the humanity at the heart of this case.
I want to start with a moment of silence for Nick Alamos, for Lisa Alamos, for Chris James. Those are the young people that Raymond Adams brutally murdered 30 years ago. My brother was at the scene. You heard him describe the trauma of being there. I think it would not be just to have this rally to free my brother without acknowledging that no parent should ever have to get that call. No community should ever have to experience that kind of trauma. No family or friend should ever have to support their loved ones through 30 years of what I imagine continues to be daily grief and pain for those families. So if we can please just take a moment for Nick and for Lisa and for James and for everyone who loves them and for the communities that they came from. Thank you. We want their families and their loved ones to know that our quest for clemency from my brother is in no way meant to negate or dismiss the tragedy that they have suffered. We very intentionally did not make this a protest, because this is not a protest, this is a plea to Governor Holcomb. Rationally, cognitively, this is an easy decision. He did not kill anybody. The prosecutor said 20 years is enough. The Supreme Court said he didn't kill anyone. It has been 30 years. Cognitively, rationally, this is an easy decision. Emotionally, Nick and Lisa and Chris's families deal with this every day. The community of Carmel deals with this every day. We understand that emotionally, this is a difficult decision, which is why it is so important to emphasize that Modibo's freedom does not equal letting a murderer walk free. Modibo's freedom does not equal letting him go unpunished for what he did do. He has been in prison for 30 years. Politically, clemency is not easy for a governor in a Republican state. It's not easy for a governor in any state. And so we are gathered here today to let Governor Holcomb know, even though we understand emotionally it is a difficult decision, politically it is a difficult decision, he has support to make the right decision. The legal purpose of clemency is for the executive branch, the governor, to correct over-sentencing by the judicial branch, the court. The Supreme Court itself said this is a case of over-sentencing because there is not evidence that Kofi committed murder. And so this is legitimately the reason clemency exists. And Governor Holcomb is, in this day, the sole and only person that has the power to use clemency for its purpose, which is mercy and justice. I do not know Governor Holcomb personally. I know many people. My father knows many people. My mother knows people who knows Governor Holcomb personally. Every single person we know who knows Governor Holcomb describes him to be a man of principle, a man of deep faith, a man who believes in justice, a man who strives to make the right decision and do the right thing even when it is difficult. And so we are here raising our voices in support of Governor Holcomb to make a hard decision at the right time. Time is short. Governor Holcomb gets out of office on January 12th, which is why we are gathered here today. That is 9 days from today. And so we are here pleading, urging, praying that God will touch Governor Holcomb and support him in making the decision to grant clemency for my brother, Kofi.
We do understand that we're here to ask for mercy and for folks to give a little bit of grace. And as Nzinga said, from a mother's heart perspective, can't be remiss. I have to say something about the Alamos and the James families. I need to have them to know my heart goes out to them every day. Every time I think about my child being there, being where he has been held captive for 30 years, I can't help but think about the reason. And as Nzinga has said, and again from a mother's heart, it's pain every day, 30 years every day. While Modibo is physically on the planet, they have to grapple with the fact that their children are never seen again after the services they held. Unfortunately, third week of March, he made a mistake. He chose to hang out with the wrong folks. He chose to be in the wrong place at the right time. Given all of that, we know, as Nzinga said, by the evidence, that he did not commit murder. For those of you who know me, you know that I was an educator. You might not know that I did that for 39 years in all kinds of different roles. But with that being at the heart of who I am personally and professionally, I believe in accountability. I believe that people should be open to taking responsibility for what they do and not to be held accountable for what others do, which they cannot control. So with that being said, my prayer and my hope today, as you heard Nzinga say, clemency is about justice and about mercy. And after 30 years of hope and prayer every day, and my saying, Jesus be a fence around that child every time his name comes to my mind, which you know has to be off and on every day, all day. And thank God that prayer has been answered to this point, and I pray that it will continue to be. But I would hope that as we petition the governor today to help him to know that he has the support to make a merciful and just decision.
29 years ago, in Elkhart, Indiana, I was waiting for my daughter's wedding, hoping the trial would not interfere with it. Thankfully, it did not. But when I wrote the letter to Kofi last May, I told him, my recommendation for his clemency. I introduced myself and told him I was foreman of the jury. I told him under the law, Indiana law, he was just as guilty from a crime that his co-defendants committed. That's what got him convicted. That decision to convict Kofi has haunted me ever since. The evidence in the trial pointed to the co-defendant who happened to testify against Kofi as the culprit who committed all three murders. I have learned more since then, that some evidence that wasn't necessarily presented at the trial reaffirms my belief that Kofi did not kill anybody. And for that reason, I offered my support for his clemency. Some people say, why did you wait so long to say anything? A couple years ago, I had a heart attack, and while I was in the hospital recovering, I collapsed with a cardiac arrest. I was dead before I hit the floor. My wife had to step over my body to work for the hospital staff to work on me. I woke up to see this bearded nurse looking at me, and I said, who are you and what am I doing here on the floor? But anyway, it changes your perspective in life. I don't know why God has kept me alive for 2 more years. In fact, I think June 2nd, I gave a testimony in my church that I had an extra 2 years of my life. My blessing from God that day was 2 more years of life. The very same day, I gave my first interview, for my support for giving Kofi clemency. It's the first time I've had contact with the family in May, and they wanted to get a hold of me real quick. Like I said, I thought I would be a small ripple in a pond, and there has been a flood of emotion from the family. I think they've always thought about the mercy of God. I'm looking at the justice. Amen. Kofi has spent 30 years in jail for something I believe he did not do. His crime was choosing the wrong companions. He thought he was going to a pot party, ended up being in a situation, his youth, his fear, he did not know how to get out of a bad situation. His crime of choosing the wrong companions has cost him 30 years in jail. It's time to rectify the system and give Kofi clemency. That's, the family has gone from the mercy and clemency, and clemency, I am coming from the justice.
Thank you, Orvin. So you can imagine, we've been steadfastly fighting this fight led by my father, who you will notice is not here today. And so I want to address my dad not being here. Those of you who know my father personally know him to be passionate and emotional. Those of you who know my father through the media know him to be passionate and maybe even angry. What I want you to know is that my dad has been fighting for 30 years for justice for my brother. He's a father. And this is the most hope that we have had. My father is at home. We will be going to be with him after this. He's vulnerable. He's a father. He's hopeful. He's scared. Those are my words, but I believe accurate, and I'm a psychiatrist, so. He did not want to become the story. It is the love of a father that keeps him from being at this rally today, to let the story be about my brother. Orvin has been requesting a meeting with Governor Holcomb. It's not yet been granted. We hope Governor Holcomb is here today. So Orvin and I are actually going to go in and see if we can meet with Governor Holcomb or a member of his staff or a member of his legal team to help them understand. As Orvin said, as a family, we know Modibo, Kofi, and we know that he didn't commit murder. As a juror, Orvin was sequestered, so he didn't see any of the media coverage. All he saw was the evidence in the courtroom. And his conclusion is that Modibo did not commit murder. And the Supreme Court, all they saw is the evidence, and their conclusion is that Modibo did not commit murder. This binder is the Clemency petition that is online at change.org that has over 6,900 signatures. We've printed out for the governor all of the supporters of clemency for Kofi so that he can know he is supported in making this decision.
As Joshua gave instruction to the children of Israel, we will be quiet because, as Nzinga said, this is not a protest. This is a prayer vigil and a plea for justice and mercy. So all of those of you who are able, please line up behind Pastor Adams. Go on this side, and once everybody gets lined up, then we're going to start around